Welcome to Aquarian Anarchy. We're going to hit it hard tonight. We are going to discuss the shape of God. Get ready for a long and deep conversation about shit we're not supposed to talk about.
All right, so I'll go ahead and read the quote for tonight. This is from Sri Ramakrishna. Different creeds are but different paths to reach the same God. So that's something that Marcus and I have been talking about for like 2.5 years now.
Right.
And I think, ultimately what we are called to do is to, yes, there are different languages, different words, different ways to describe, in a lot of ways, the same thing, the same revelation of the supernatural in the natural realm. But what's important is that we are constantly on a quest for that definitive, unquestionable truth. And sometimes that means letting go of some stuff that you were taught, that you thought were true, and that you find out through greater revelation are not true, because you found a deeper and greater truth. And so Marcus kind of hit me up and wanted to go through this stuff, because as you have all, if you've been paying attention to my Twitter journey for the last 10 plus months, you know that I've been going through this, daily meditation practice. And I've been just kind of doing it as Joel Bain from, Career Hackers would say, I've been learning out loud. There's a lot of this stuff that I already was familiar with, but there's a lot of this stuff that is either being rekindled or maybe even presented to me in a way that I hadn't ever seen it before, even though I've read through this book before. And so Marcus has watched that journey and has started to see some parallels and some similarities, and also, like, to hear him talk about it has also, I hesitate to say learn some stuff, but it's made some connections, and it's made some things revealed to you in a different way that I think you've expressed to me that you've appreciated. And I always remind people, like, this ain't me, this is this book. that's and the saints and the the inspiration from God that is presenting all this stuff to us. But anyway, so what Marcus wanted to do is put this thing together where we kind of probed that journey through a couple of different lenses to see where some of these things start to kind of line up, and how some of this stuff has been revealed in different ways to different folks through their own culture and their own traditions and things like that throughout time.
Yeah, and
is that
I
a
think
good
that,
intro?
yeah, for sure. And one of the things I had an experience this week that kind of, I guess, for me, kind of like cements those two things together. I'm extremely interested in the Voodooan and Santeria and all of the Afro diaspora religions, and the African derived religions. And one of the spirits that I'm particularly, which this, Chad, but the audience doesn't, might or might not, that I'm particularly close to, is the voodoo god of death, dance, and sex. His name is G'day. I find him to be extreme, and he scares the hell out of most people because, for one, he's not the death that people think about. Like, most people think, and those kinds of things. And he's not that. He comes with rum, a cigar, a top hat, and some sunglasses, and he's ready for a party. So, and I've said multiple times, if I get to choose what God looks like, that's him. And because he's fun and also extremely loving. And so this week I had an experience, and to make it very short, because I'm trying to wrap my head around biblical stuff as it compares to what I've been through and the experiences of my life. And so G'day, more or less, for the audience, came to me and basically pulled his face down to reveal Jesus standing there, and then was like, "But you like it better this way." And that,
Interesting.
yeah, because he is, his symbol is a crucifix. That's Goday's symbol. So his message to me was that, you choose what path you're on. Nobody has the exact same path. And I chose him because I was comfortable with him. I was comfortable with, for whatever reason, my weird brain needed some crazy African death god to be the face that I wanted to see for God. And most people, at least in this country, want to see Jesus. They are the same thing. And so I've really appreciated and have learned a lot from the journey that you've been on. I've watched and paid attention, because one of the things that I learned in my past, because in the past I was a ceremonial magician, and one of the things that you do as a ceremonial magician is you pay attention to symbols, you pay attention to patterns. So that's like ingrained in me. Like I can instantaneously, because I did that for 20 years, so instantly when somebody starts talking, like symbols start, oh, this symbolizes this symbolizes that, this is that, and when you're talking all the time, I'm like, oh yeah, that's like this, or that's like that. And so I wanted to
can I add to that real quick? So I think that's an interesting and important way to kind of unpack this for people, so that people can really grasp and understand how like our relationship has grown through this process, and what you're actually describing is similar to like meme culture or pop culture, movies and things like that. It's like when somebody starts explaining something and you can tell them, like we've talked about, like with anarchism and self-ownership and like the elites versus the regular people and all this other stuff. We've talked about A Bug's Life, and it's like, oh, okay, like that. All right, now I get it. And then when I say the thing about how like, yeah, but half the ants are attacking the other ants and telling them to put a mask on and stand 6 feet away from them or whatever, it instantly connects on a different level, where there's all this context that you don't even have to explain. You can just say, you can just have this symbol, and that symbol has all these things attached to it that instantly distill down to, now it's almost never perfect. Like metaphors are never perfect, because if they were, it would just be you saying the thing, you would just be saying the thing instead of needing a metaphor to be an analog to it. So I just wanted to bring that up, because that's how I see like some of the symbology that you bring to the table to kind of color in the lines, I guess, so to speak, of some of this stuff, is like, okay, these are like your anchors for what these things have meant to you as you have learned what you've learned.
Absolutely. That is exactly right. And I'm about to, here in a moment, put up what is called the Tree of Life, which is actually a Kabbalistic Jewish traditional symbol. The initial artwork I'm going to put up is actually my own. It's my own creation. But the symbol is exactly that. Not to get into depth with Kabbalah and the Jewish faith, because for the purpose of this, that would, one, take too damn long, and two, would defeat the purpose, because then we just wind up talking about that. But what I've called the Tree of Life is the file cabinet of God. Basically, what it allows you to do, whether you are a Jew, a Christian, a pagan, a Muslim, it does not matter. It allows you to say, okay, Jesus is the Redeemer. So he fits in Tiferet, which means beauty, which is in the middle of the tree. Long story short. And if you're if you're a Hindu, you go, Krishna is the Redeemer. He fits right there in Tiferet. If you're talking to an Egyptian, they're like, Horus is the Redeemer, and he fits right in there in Tiferet.
Mhm.
So what it does is it establishes a common language. So many times in anarchist circles, we wind up getting bogged down because two people mean different things by saying the same thing.
Vice versa. They mean the same thing by saying different things.
Right. And as
I don't think they mean different things and they're saying the same. Well, maybe sometimes they are. Yeah, sometimes people do say the same thing, but they actually mean different things, and that's where it can get dangerous. So it's really important to make sure that you define terms when you're talking to somebody. Anyway, continue. I'm sorry.
No. And I want that. I want you to jump in when I'm talking because I want this to be, I do want to get deep into your experiences, and I want to get into how you see the world, because what I want to do is relate how I'm seeing things to that, so that we can all find common ground with people of different faiths and what the cosmology or the shape of God is. Because really, God doesn't have a shape. God is everything, and everything doesn't have a shape. So, to jump back to the anarchists, when like, for instance, when we say capitalism, we're talking about free trade. But at the same time, when an anarcho-communist says capitalism, they're talking about exploitation by corporations. And those aren't mutually exclusive. Those are, that's why I typically don't use the word capitalism, is because it's gotten a bad connotation, largely because what they call capitalism now is major businesses and corporations globally screwing over other people. So what we need to do, whether you're talking about religion or politics or all of these kinds of things, is come together on common ideas. And I think that throughout this, I want to be able to throw out the symbol and people kind of get a basic understanding of where it's at. So I'm going to go ahead and
throw this. Every time Marcus starts doing this stuff, starts talking and starts bringing up all his different, I read this book and I read this. This is all I hear.
And like a lot of us are really smart. I'm really smart.
That's what I hear. That's what I hear.
For sure. And I'm actually going to take the banner down.
I had to do it.
It's all good. But
yeah, take the banner down because it's blocking the.
Yeah, and so I'm going to take the
You got it?
I got it.
I got it. Oh, you got it already.
All right, there we go. So this is the tree of life. And for those that are unfamiliar with this symbol, you can see my little cursor here. For most Christians, y'all don't deal with this over here or this over here. What you deal with is right through the middle. And what that is because most of the people that are going to probably be watching this are going to be Judeo-Christians. And so for them, if you look up here at the top, this is in the symbol of the tree of life.
Would you say this applies to all the Abrahamic faiths, Islam as well? Yeah,
it does.
So because I'm pretty sure we have either some Muslims or some folks who at least have been or understand it through that lens as well. So I wanted to, because I think anyway, I just wanted to bring that up as a
and for sure. And Bo, what's funny is that all of those, particularly the Abrahamic faiths, have a common core to not particularly, people are going to say Kabbalah didn't come around until blah, 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 blah. Okay. No, not Kabbalah as we know it, but there was a set of mystical teachings that were floating around the Middle East around 2,000 years ago. And they largely are lumped together in Merkaba and Hekelo mysticism. There's other ones that come in, but that's the shorthand of it. And those two particular kinds of mysticism become what we consider modern Judaism and what we consider modern Christianity, and then later on what becomes modern Islam. So So at the end of the day, yes, these, but if you don't look at what they become, this is what, untouched by like becoming a particular religion, um, those two things became Kabbalah, which really draws down to this symbol. So back to the symbol, for those that are of a Abrahamic faith, this little sephira or sphere, right here, it's a level of consciousness in Kabbalistic thought. This is God. This is everything that is. And you cannot know that. It is impossible to know it. Impossible. Can't. And if you come down to the little yellow sphere, that is where Jesus hangs out. And this is the Holy Spirit in the purple. And the X marks the spot to where we're at. So we're at the bottom. So most Christians just deal with that. Now, why I wanted to bring that into play is because I will refer back to it as we are going through. And to be clear, each of these, if you were to say the end of the Lord's Prayer, it literally is Ata Malkut, which is Malkuth is the name of this. This is how it translates. Ata Malkut Ugavura Ugadula Leolam Amen, which means for thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. And it what that encompasses is the cross. That is the cross that Catholics make on their body. And so just to throw the basic symbolism out with this image, I wanted to show that. One of the other things that it is important for people to understand if they're trying to understand the fuckery that is going on in the world. We recently covered the occultocracy. And within the occultocracy, they use these symbols. This is a neutral symbol. It is not good. It is not bad. You will notice there is a dove and there is a serpent on this glyph. The dove is at the top, and that is the middle pillar. Again, representative of Christianity and those kinds of ideas. The serpent winds its way back and forth all the way up the tree. Both can be used for good, but generally the dove is the right-hand path and the serpent is the left-hand path. So, but both can be positive. When I say left-hand path, I'm not meaning evil, but it is easier to become a bad person using left-hand path stuff, but it is possible to become evil using right-hand path stuff. But that's just kind of that to encapsulate that. What I also will be using throughout this is...
Can I ask you a question real quick on that?
Absolutely.
On the right-left. So, okay, so the right... So some of what I have understood is that the right can tend to be more of like the rigid hard line,
Yes.
the path of like austerity, and that the left can be more the path of like gentle and I don't know how to describe, like a liberality of libertine almost sort of.
Yes.
Which if we're being honest, both are destructive.
Correct.
Like too like this unbridled liberalism, libertinism, whatever you want to call it, pushes to this level of you almost go to the I can do whatever I want and it doesn't matter. It doesn't have any consequences as long as it makes me happy. So be it. And there are ramifications for other people, but there are also ramifications for us. Yep. I described this. When we were, it was something like last week or somewhere in there where I was talking to somebody about how there can be this tendency to, it was it was the one about temperance where Alchemical Daddy came on and she got mad at me. She was like, I didn't need to hear this today. But anyway, it was basically like, when you're a kid, when you're a toddler, like you want to put everything in your mouth and you would eat like a whole bucket full of Halloween candy in one sitting if you had your way.
Right.
The problem with that is it's going to make you sick because it's too much of a quote unquote good thing. I would
Mhm.
argue that it's not necessarily a good thing. It tastes good, but it's made by people who don't really care about your health. So,
For
but
sure.
anyway, the point being that too much liberality can be destructive, and too much austerity can also be destructive, because that's where we have like this, instead of having a softness of heart, we have a hardness of heart. We can be unforgiving. We can be we can say things and do things in such a way that don't actually foster an attitude and a spirit of repentance and conversion in people, but actually
Absolutely.
serve to have people dig their heels even deeper. And we've seen this a lot where, like, look, for all of the things that went on in the last 2.5 years, okay, don't you think if there was a genuine conscientious desire to have people protect one another by wearing masks, shouldn't a gentle recommendation and suggestion, and then backed up with data that shows, like, okay, look, we looked at it, and yes, there are some potential harmful effect, like being completely honest about it, but being kind and being having it be more of an invitation. When they started to make all this stuff mandatory, people were just, and I, in some ways, myself included, were doing it just out of defiance. We're disobeying, even if it meant that there was a possibility that you could get sick or something like that. We're just like, I don't care. You can't tell me what to do. You know, it was weird. And so that part can be destructive as well. And we've seen this. I make this argument all the time. Like when the Chick-fil-A CEO or whatever came out and made his big statement about gay marriage back 10 years ago or so, however long ago it was, you had a whole bunch of people show up and start making out at Chick-fil-A in front of all the kids and everything. And it's like, sometimes that's why I think some of these things are better discussed in a loving, caring relationship with someone where you really care about their well-being, and you talk to them about what you think they might be, causing themselves some harm, leading themselves down a self-destructive path, is much more effective than trying to do this stuff that we see all over the place from these bully pulpits, where people just yell at each other about, you're doing something bad and I'm going to make you feel terrible about it. A lot of times we all have a rebellious streak. So we will push back sometimes, even against our best interest, just because we want to own our own decisions. Now, you have some other people who don't want to own their own decisions, and they're more than happy to have other people tell them what to do. But generally speaking, it's not the right-hand path can be destructive too. And we can actually do it to ourselves. And you and I were talking about this before, and we'll get into this a little later on. But this 10-month journey that I've been on has been a process of growth that has been characterized by many momentary lapses or failures on my part. And in the past, I would have been really discouraged and really, I guess, taken off of my path by those failures. And I'm coming more and more to understand, to tolerate them. I don't like them, but I understand that it's not the end of the world, and that it's actually part of, similar to, like, trying to max out on bench press and you fail, and it can be frustrating, but it's like, well, yeah, but I'm still, the thing I tried to max out on is still 10 pounds higher than it was 3 months ago. So I'm getting somewhere. I may have failed there, but when I clear that, I'm going to clear that, and then I'm going to, it's all about, we continue to grow, and we're even harder on ourselves. But if you can kind of step back and look at your progress along the way, there's a lot to be thankful for. And so I've started to kind of recalibrate my approach to even my own failures in a lot of this stuff, because when you're striving for perfection, and I'm not saying that I expect to be perfect, but I'm saying that, like, perfection is the target.
Right.
So when perfection is the target, you become increasingly sensitive to how far away you are from that target, actually the closer you get to it.
Correct.
You know,
And
like that when you're way off, when you don't even hit the goal, you don't care how close you were. Like you're not measuring, was I 7 feet away from hitting the backboard or was I 3 feet away from hitting the backboard? Who cares? You didn't even hit the backboard. But if I shoot one and it rims out, I'm like, oh, that almost went down.
right.
And now I'm like trying to think like, okay, maybe I didn't follow through right. Maybe my elbow wasn't in, whatever. My boys play basketball. So it's like basketball is a thing for me. So I just wanted to bring that up because like, as we're trying to travel that royal path down the center, it's important to understand that like that left and right path symbolize something that we all experience day in, day out in how we treat ourselves. And then the outgrowths of that are how we treat other people.
Amen. And yeah, you touched on a lot of stuff in that.
I know. I'm sorry.
No.
Started going.
No. It was good. But I want to kind of compare some of the things you were talking about. One of the things that Crowley talks about in a book called The Book of Balance, which is a really good, one of the best things I think he ever wrote, is he is comparing the two sides of the tree. And he says this is called the pillar of severity, which is actually the left-hand path, but you kind of described it in a way as the right-hand path. None of these are clear cut, but he describes the pillar of severity versus the pillar of mercy, which is the one over here with the white circles, and then the pillar with the black circles is the other. And he says that when trying to balance these out, he says what happens is if you are too much on the left-hand side on the pillar of severity, if you're over there, then you will he said you will become evil. You will become the thing that you're trying to fight against. But if you are on too far on the right-hand side, you will allow and abet evil. So at the same time, he's talking about you have to find the pillar of mildness, which is the middle pillar. And what people, when you were talking, so I wanted to hit that. And the second thing that you talked about that I want to hit was you were talking about the way things become a struggle and fall down. This path right here is called the path of pay. There's a Hebrew letter attributed because there are 22 Hebrew letters. And if you counted all these lines in here, all of the different colored lines, there are 22. Each letter of the Hebrew alphabet fits on these places. And in modern Kabbalah, the path of pay, which is right here, is also attributed to the tower card from the Tarot. That is, and it's linked to each of these have a biblical story that is attached to them. And this is the Tower of Babel. This is where people think that they're learning everything that they need to know. And when they get to a place where they think they're just knowing it all, God strikes it down with a lightning bolt and it falls to the ground. And people come out not being able to communicate with each other. And that is what happens on the Tree of Life between the orange dot, which is attributed to Mercury and his knowledge or like book knowledge, and Netzach, which is over here in the green, is when you move from this one to this one, you lose like the foundation in knowledge because your emotions will take over. And so that's what's kind of I witnessed this happen.
So knowledge is the orange on the left, and then
correct.
And then what is the emotion
green.
On the
Netzach? It's emotions.
Emotion. Okay. All right.
And so
logic and emotion, which cannot coexist, correct. Generally correct. Speaking.
Right. Yeah. And I watched this happen to you. I watched it happen when you were when you had your computer glitch and were attacked. That happened right there. I mapped it. I went, oh, Chad's going through pay. Neat.
Yeah. Kiss my ass. Neat.
right. But it's
neat.
Right. But your faith, once you got past that and the question of where you were going to be financially, where your stability was going to be, all of those kinds of things. Oh no, I've been hurt. Once you got past that and entered Netzach is that elation where you realize, you know what, God had you, and you could find it. You knew that because you had just read the things that led up to that break. And so when that fell apart, you moved into a different realm. And now I don't think you stayed in Netzach very long. I think very quickly after that, you moved into Tiferet. And I think that one of the advantages to the book that you're reading from is that it really is a dove-based system. So it tries very hard to keep you in that middle. And so I want to also point out that this middle here, the idea is, many magicians and spiritual people that use this glyph try to balance, and we do it too. And part of this is unavoidable. It's just part of human nature. We have to stay focused on God. It's kind of like the dove path is the preferred path, but if you screw up, you can just jump onto the serpent for a minute to catch your balance.
Right.
And so
that's an interesting, wow. That's that's an interesting way of thinking about it, because I hadn't really thought about it like that. But yeah, there's sometimes that's kind of the trap, right? It's like, oh, a helper, a savior, and it's a false one.
Correct.
And it's a trap. So I want to just put a pin right here for this. Sure. I want to return to this serpent discussion when you're done with what you're saying, because I want to bring it back to like that experience that I had and some of what we were talking about before we came on the air, because I think it's a good time to bring those two together to make that point.
Sure. But just to kind of catch everybody up, we're trying to stay here in the middle. That's the pillar of mildness, and it is not a balance. People miss it, that it isn't, balancing one with the other. That's not the way it is. It is a complete and total devotion to God. It is everything else doesn't matter. None of the other bullshit matters. You are just guided by God. That's it. There's where you go. And one of the things I also want to point out on this glyph before moving on, and like I do want to get back to the serpent, and I'll try to get there as quickly as we can. I want to point out this jagged thing here, the gold that goes down the middle. That is how God created the world. If you follow specific sayings in the Bible, each of these words become important in the creation of the world. And so what that is God does give us the tools so that when we do stumble, we have we have the serpent in a positive way to balance us. Oh shit, I messed up. I lost my focus on you, God. But hey, you know what? I used this stepping stone to get back onto the right path. And so God saw that was going to happen, and that when you couldn't, like for instance here, manage, this is strength and mercy. When you can't have strength for whatever reason, and you're relying on the mercy of others, where you actually want to be here is in the middle. And so you may need to use those balancing acts to get you back to the middle. So I wanted to next move to this glyph. This is this one and the next one I'm not going to get deeply into unless we need to as the discussion goes by. But this is a glyph from the Golden Dawn. And I mentioned this glyph in the next one, or I mentioned the Golden Dawn who created this glyph and the next glyph in our occultocracy, because the powers that should not be in the occultocracy, whether you're talking about the secret organizations or government bullcrap, whatever, they use these symbols directly from the Golden Dawn, and many evil things have been done with that. But the symbol itself isn't negative. The symbol is actually quite positive because it gives you a balancing act. But in just to introduce these, this is the Eden before the fall.
Real quick, you want to address this real quick, because I was gonna say, like, Marcus is about to throw a bunch of scary stuff just kind of as a joke, but so I'll let you, because you've dug into this stuff a lot more than I have. I kind of I'm just like, you know what? I'll take your word for it, Marcus.
Right.
Because I don't, I
Sure.
have no interest in reading it. So I'll let you answer that question. Is the
Sure.
Golden Dawn bad juju?
The answer is sometimes. The Golden Dawn itself was founded out of a Freemasonic, and this is probably like people are going to be, no, it's not, and all that. I don't care. What my research has shown me is that it came out directly out of Freemasonry in a group called the SRIA, or the Society Rosicrucian Anglica. Basically, what happened is the top three people that started the Golden Dawn they thought that women should be included in the mysteries of magic and spirituality, and the Freemasonry doesn't allow for that. So they created their own system and used the same symbols. Lots of really good people have come through the Golden Dawn and have done good things with the symbols that they introduced, but some people have not, because the Golden Dawn was just a set of symbols and initiations that kicked off spiritual ideas. And where you take those spiritual ideas, whether you stay on that firm path towards Kether, towards the crown, towards God, or you get lost in Da'ath, which I'll cover in a moment, which is the abyss, that's kind of on you. That's your decision. So lots of bad people have gone through the Golden Dawn. The people that are in the occultocracy, that is their number one, I'm telling you, number one symbol set they pulled directly from the Golden Dawn. And it's not because the Golden Dawn was good, bad, or anything like that. It was just huge. Lots and lots of people were influenced by it. So the Black Brotherhood uses the same symbol as the White Brotherhood. And so they use
there's a lot of that, though, right? Like in general, like if you think about how even when you think of like the body of Christ versus the prince of this world, who there's a lot of the stuff is not like this direct diametric opposition. Correct. What it is it's just a perversion.
Yep.
It's the same thing, but perverted in a way. That's why, like we've talked about like the Antichrist. We've talked about how Cyprian has identified the Antichrist as possibly being Matthew McConaughey, because it's not going to be the whoever the health director is now, right?
Right.
You know, the dude who's a girl now and is hideous looking. That's not the Antichrist. That's too obvious. That's too on the nose. The Antichrist is going to be the devil in a blue dress. It's going to be the thing that is charismatic and that makes you think it's Jesus.
Yep.
Absolutely. The whole point so anti is not just this like diametric opposition. It's more like it's just not.
Correct.
You know, so and the closer it is to the thing, the more people get sucked into the vortex.
Correct. And one of these two symbols, this one and then the next one I'm going to show that in it's funny. I love the way that works, is that your subconscious is already picking up on the symbol set. If you look at the symbol we're looking at, the top is this is supposed to symbolize God and his infinite unity. Okay. And it's symbolized by an angel. This down here, that's Jesus. And he is nice and fitting on the cross. And this is God as the world, or Sophia, and the world as we know it. This is Eden itself. And if you notice, in Eden, you have the serpent. And if you count the heads on the serpent, there are 7 heads. That should ring a bell towards people that are familiar with Revelations. So you will also notice on the branches of the trees, just held out, barely even recognized, you see the symbols of each of the planets. You see all that stuff because it was all in balance. It was all good. And then once Eden fell.
Okay. So hang on just a second. So real quick. Sure. So you've got the serpent down there below. And so yes. So Revelation, that's one thing but it also, like, the number 7 is used a lot. And we also we know of the 7 deadly sins. You've got pride, wrath, envy, gluttony, lust, greed, and which one am I missing?
Sloth.
Sloth. There you go. Thank you. So each of those has an opposing virtue.
Yes.
Pride has humility. Lust has love. Like it's when you think or modesty. It could be there are a lot of different ways that you could you could interpret what the opposing. But typically, I think of like lust is the thing that is trying to fill the place where love should be, and it's missing the mark. And pride is kind of the root of all of them. But anyway, you go into some of the other ones, and it's like envy is like generosity, and then greed. Greed also could be generosity, but greed, I think, more is like a manifestation of something that like envy is, or I guess envy could be more. I don't know. I'd have to go through and like do.
And there are,
but you get what I'm saying. Like there's opposing virtues on each of these that if you practice the virtue, you build yourself away, and obviously you're always going to have to lean into and rely on God's mercy and God's strength to help you with this stuff. None of this stuff is possible for us to do alone.
correct.
And to think that is not the case, to think that you can do this alone, you are falling for the first root sin of all of them, and that is pride, because you somehow think that you can do this shit on your own. And I'm here to tell you, because I have done it, I have thought that I could do this on my own. And humility comes in forms that you are not prepared to take, if you are not inviting it. And unfortunately, humility comes in ways you're not prepared to take, even when you do invite it. Because sometimes, it's like, God, please make me humble. And he's like, bet.
Okay. Right. So I want to point out to people too, talking about the number 7. Right here in this little area right here, there's an invisible sephira called Da'ath. You're not supposed to actually refer to it as it's called the abyss. Da'ath means knowledge. But if you count this down here is where we are. This is the earth. These are the emanations of God. This is beyond our capable understanding. But if you consider Da'ath as the final planet, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 7 virtues on this tree. If you look here, let's actually go back. Damn it, too far. If you go here, again, we have things 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then the earth.
The 7th is behind her. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
I didn't see that. I was like, there's only 6, Marcus.
Nope.
All right. She's sitting on one. Okay, I got it.
Correct. And again, these are the virtues. And what winds up happening, and this is the other symbol, is this is Eden after the fall.
And now they're all perverted.
Correct. It comes back to the symbol that you were talking about. And notice that this creation, remember that zigzaggy thing that I talked about? It moves up. This is the flaming sword of Michael, and it moves up. And it basically it comes out of the world. All of this crap winds up here, and you wind up with so many. Notice also there are 6 different spheres here. You have 1, 2, 3. Of course, there's the big one up here, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. 15 is the number of the devil, just to say. So what winds up happening is this is the moment where, notice that Eve is completely, because this is Eve here, right in this area, or this is actually Adam, but down here is Eve. She is absolutely overcome by the serpent and coming down. And this is Adam, who has been removed from the cross. He is no longer in the symbol, Jesus. He is off of the cross and he is down beneath it. He has been pulled down by the serpents.
You see this?
That are,
right here.
Yeah,
One day we gotta get Jay in here. We gotta get
For
Jay
sure.
and Sketch probably. Like there's some knowledge that we could get from those two guys too.
Agreed.
But anyway, so let's go continue.
So this is another symbol from the Golden Dawn, and what you'll notice up here at the crown, and in you have God non-existent, whereas where you come back to here, all of this is one symbol of God before the fall. Here, God is just a crown. There ain't nothing more. You get Jesus, who's being overshadowed by the Holy Spirit. This is a symbol of the Holy Spirit. So all of this stuff is moved outside of the realm of man, whereas before, sorry, it keeps skipping, but all of it was nice and balanced and all within a reachable time. And this is what happens when we let those 7 deadly sins come into play. So the final picture that I want to show does not come from the Golden Dawn. This is a symbol of the Kalipoth. One of the things you said earlier, and Kalipoth is the shards or the broken tree of evil. And one of the things that you will notice in the difference between the two symbols, this is the tree of life, there is no path right here. And that's on purpose because God is up here and you have to go outside of this symbol. This symbol can only get you here. You have to go outside of this symbol. You have to go outside of teaching, of knowledge, of all of those kinds of things in order to get to God, because God is beyond those things. But if you look at the tree of evil, remember that Sephirah I talked about that was Da'ath that we're not supposed
Front
to talk
and center
about?
on here.
Right. And it's also in the middle of an inverted pentagram. And there's a bunch of paths to it. And you'll also notice there's no dove. There are 2 serpents. And all of that is on purpose. And the reason that it is on purpose, and I'm going to go ahead and remove that now. The reason
thank you.
Yeah. The reason that it is on
I'm gonna throw
purpose.
this thing up.
Sure.
All right, there we go.
The reason that it is on purpose is because they want you to stay in Da'ath. Their purpose is they believe that, and Da'ath is also linked with the ego, and they believe that if you submit to your ego and become one with it, that you achieve movement amongst all 10 of those Sephirah on the tree of life. They are wrong. God is the only one who can allow you to come into the Garden of Eden again, which is heaven or the crown. So I wanted to get that symbol set out so that people would know where I'm coming from and kind of familiarize themselves with it. So from there, I want you to get back into what you were talking about with Da'ath.
Yeah. So let me try to remember where we were with that. So can you pull it back up again?
Sure.
Your the tree of life from the very first image.
Yeah. Give me just a moment.
Not that one. I hate that one.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan either.
Yeah. All so let me get this out the way. All right. So I'm trying to remember, what were we talking about?
We were talking about your experience with Vin and needing to basically that we think we're going to win, but
yeah. There we go. Yeah. So we were talking about, but there was something specific that you were talking about that was similar to that. Let me just take it back to when we had Ben Armani, aka Cyprian, on a little over a year ago. I have to confess, like, I was thinking of things in a very, I don't want to say necessarily materialistic way, but I guess I kind of was thinking in terms of how can we find a way to use this stuff, use these tools, use whatever, our faith, whatever it is. How can we use this to win what's coming? Because what's coming is scary. It's difficult, next to impossible. And I was like, I want to win. I don't want evil to win. I want good to win. And so it's tempting to think that way, because when you believe, at least like I do, that the gates of hell shall not prevail against the power of God, that the victory is guaranteed. The victory has already been won, and it's just a matter of us going through our own process to either join the winning team or to choose to, for some crazy idiotic reason, choose the losing team. And that somehow that translated into, oh, and that means like here on earth. Like, no, it doesn't. So as I've gone through this book, and I've gone through the process of, listening to those guys, like I love the Royal Path podcast. Like it's one of my favorite ones. It's one of the few that I don't miss. Like I may get behind, but I don't miss it. And so going through that process and listening to how they've described it, and especially like Father Turbo, he's so gentle, but at the same time firm in like, listen, I'm not trying to like ruin your day or anything like that, but if you think this way, you're not going to make it. If you think this way, you're not going to make it.
Sure.
And essentially what it comes down to is, I have come to this understanding that we are not meant to win here. In fact, what is meant to happen is horrors that we cannot even fathom. Absolutely. And that if we don't experience that, we're probably lucky that we died before it happens. Because when it happens, and that's why it's really important for us to make sure that we're raising our kids and our grandkids after that to be prepared, because here's what's going to happen. Here's what we have to be prepared for. And this is the part that's really difficult, really challenging for the human mind to grasp and to prepare itself for. We have to be so prepared that when we are being burnt alive and having our fingernails and our teeth ripped out and we are being skinned alive, that we will not look to that serpent for comfort.
Correct.
Because that is the temptation. And that is actually what I almost was like falling for even then. And that's, back to this image of the Antichrist, is that there was an Antichrist element to what I was thinking. I was thinking of this, like, God, please let me have something that will help me win here. And I even like started to like reevaluate like how I view like, owning weapons and things like that. Like, it's like, man, I on a certain level, like, I'm like, all right, I need to be able to like defend. I need to be able to fight and defend, because I need to keep the other people alive long enough so that they can hopefully be prepared. They can hopefully be prepared to not give themselves over to the dark side. But when you look at Revelation, like, it doesn't end pretty, and there's some awful stuff that happens before that, and then there's the 1,000 years, and then there's some more awful stuff, and then there's finally at the end of all that, there's the victory, and it's in the life after this one. And so as I've gone through this process and I've had these failures of my own, and I've stumbled along the way, when you go back to that particular incident that you're talking about that happened, 6-7 months ago, I was really upset. Like, it really, and it's still, I'm human.
Sure.
It's still doing a number on me. I have like PTSD from it or something. So it was real. It was tangible. It was terrifying. And the only thing I think that saved me from it being like way worse is the fact that I had begun this journey, 3 months prior to it happening. And I think where I was when that happened in the book is nothing short of like prophetic, and also like divine providence It was providential. It was prophetic and providential. Like it told me
God
what
guiding you.
It was God told me what was going to happen, and also kind of let me know, like, it's all right.
Mm-hmm.
I got you. Like, you don't need to fall for the devil in the blue dress to save you, because I got you. And one of the things that it made me realize was that if everything gets stripped away from me, the things that matter, I still have. I still have my wife, my children, my family, and those things, and the people I love. And then I thought about it some more, and I thought about Job, and I was like, oh, but wait, I might lose all that too. And then God still got me. And it's not about like what's happening here. And it's like so much of this is you go back and look at this, read the lives of the saints, read the martyrs they've actually been burnt alive.
Yeah,
and some of them have
died shitty lives,
and some of them came back. Some of them came back and like were miraculously like either resurrected, or like they burnt them and somehow they emerged unburnt, or
like Daniel
whatever the case may be.
Oven.
Yeah, right. So yeah, shout out to Nebuchadnezzar. So anyway, so you have these examples, okay, of what it's like to actually experience the last temptation of Christ. That real, it's all right, here's kingdom, power, and glory are being offered to you. You know, I can let you rule over all this if you just bow down and submit to me. I can turn this stone into bread. Aren't you hungry?
Right.
And then what was the other one? It was it was like cast yourself down and the angels will catch you.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, nah, bro, like this.
Yeah, this world.
this world. I'm not worried about that. Like I'm prepared to. And even in the Garden of Gethsemane, he says he prays to God the Father, like, let this cup pass from me.
Yeah.
But not my will, but your will be done. And that's the part of it that, man, it's the hardest part, but it's the only part that like keeps me going through some stuff where I'm staring some really possibly difficult stuff in the face. And I know I'm not alone in that, because there's a lot of folks who go through a lot of different things, and have their moments where they're brushed with, how they're going to provide for their family, and, how they're going to take care of themselves and do all those things. And so I get it. Like this is a universal, human condition. And there's always somebody who has it worse. There's always somebody who has it worse. There's one person in the whole world and in the whole history of humanity who can say, I had it the worst. And I don't know that guy. So I know that somebody has it worse than me.
Right.
Always.
For sure.
Because I'm not that guy.
For sure. And I think you got back to what you put a pin in with those ideas. But one of the things, analyzing what you said, I want to return to the tree. Mm-hmm. One of the things I want to point out, look at this serpent that's all over the place at the bottom of the tree.
It's
right?
Calipoth. Is that the name? Or what's the
serpent? Serpent has a bunch of names, but
the abyss. The abyss.
It's Da'ath.
Oh, Da'ath.
Da'ath.
Calipoth is that weird other thing, that other tree.
Yeah, it's the other tree. Yeah. Okay. It means shards.
My bad.
But here at the bottom, you'll notice the serpent is all over this thing, right? Mm-hmm. But when you get up here, the serpent spreads out a bit, and he's just right up here, comes right behind Kether. Mm-hmm. But notice where his head is. Notice that his tongue, the farthest point of him, is not touching Kether. It is touching this path. And that path is the path of the fool. And now the fool, it has a positive connotation, because once we realize we know nothing, we figured out the truth. And that's that giving and being able to give into the dove. The serpent does not take you to Kether. The dove does. The serpent can take you to one path away from it. It's the letter Aleph. But it can take you to that one path. But you have got to accept that you are a fool. You are nothing before God if you're going to get into Kether. So that comes back to the what you were talking about. It's why it's why these people that have gotten, 20 vaccinations and are doing all this dumb shit, why they can still make it is because yes, that serpent can take you. If you start to fall again, you did it. I've done it a billion times. When I start to make a mistake and I lose sight of God, I get mad or I get discouraged or whatever it is, and I lose sight of it. I find some balance. So the serpent can be helpful, but you cannot stay on the serpent because the serpent cannot take you there. So that's where those, it's the idea of drugs. Drugs, yes, they can give you a moment of elation, of you forget your problems for a second or whatever it is, for sure. But they don't actually fulfill you. They don't actually deliver what the promise is. And that's why this serpent does not make it to Kether. It makes it to Aleph. Granted, I'm nowhere near that shit. In my spirituality, I'm floating somewhere around down towards the bottom. But at the end of the days, we have to understand that God delivers us when we say, I give up to you. It is all about sacrifice.
Surrender. Yeah.
It is all about surrender.
Yeah. Well, so it's interesting that you say that, because so like a few things popped into my mind. First, you have there are plenty saints throughout history who have been described as fools for Christ.
Yeah.
There's some of them who like, and it's crazy, but like they will deliberately act stupid, act foolish, in order to avoid pride, because they know that like where they are, like if they're too much, I don't know, trying to preach, like it can come off as they're charismatic enough and everything else to where they end up like developing a following, and they're not prepared to handle that. And so it ends up, there's a lot of them that will just go off and become like, hermits. And then people follow them, and then they build a monastery around them. And it's like, but I was trying to get away from y'all. What are you doing?
Right. And in our circles,
that's why they end up not talking, like that's why a lot of them are silent.
And in our circles, in magical circles, that's called the curse of the magus. That a magus, which the magus degree, if you will, is right here in Binah. It's understanding. It's the first path or this first sephira in the supernal triad, and it's a curse because you can speak truth. You have truth. You've realized like all these things. You're you're not God, but you're in the presence of God. You know what I mean? You're getting there. You got it. But everything that you say gets misinterpreted. Everything that you say, people think that you're trying to do this. So one of the keys to getting past that is you're right. Lots of people have chosen silence, and that is a good method to get to avoid that. But the second way of doing that is to give in to being a fool. There was a Sufi mystic that his entire like teachings was like, he went out, and I think I've told you this before, but he went out, but for the purpose of this, he went out and like in Islam, you're not allowed to drink alcohol. And he was like, hey, everybody get drunk. Hey, you're not supposed to eat pork. He's like, here, have yourself a pork chop right there. Now he didn't touch it. He had nothing to do with it, but he's encouraging others to do it, because if they do, they fall and are not capable of making it to that ascended level.
So, can, on that idea of like falling failure, I kind of want to bring it back to that, because
Sure.
one of the things that as I was going through that stretch of, trying to figure out, because we even made an episode after we interviewed Cyprian last year.
Mm-hmm.
The title is "This Is How We Win,"
Right.
and it's like, and I almost want to go back and watch it and be like, fucking retards, man. What were y'all thinking? Like, what were you doing? We're like, we're gonna win. It's the Lord of the Rings, and we're gonna win. We're gonna throw the ring, and we're gonna beat these guys. The WEF ain't got shit on us. We got it. No, this is that they are destined to like rule the world.
Yep.
Because the world, we are not as one of my favorite bands, Christian bands, from like 20 years ago or so, Switchfoot said, and I can't remember what song it was, but anyway, it's like, it's
is it Stand?
Oh, it's the beautiful letdown. It's the title track from the Beautiful Letdown album called The Beautiful Letdown. Anyway, it says, I don't belong here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't belong here. And it's, what does it say? I'm gonna
I don't know the lyrics.
I'm gonna carry a cross and a song in a land where I don't belong.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that idea of like actually carrying a cross is too much for a lot of people to handle. That's why they want to, like, what's the magic words? What's the magic words that I can say so I don't have to carry this cross? Give me the magic words. And it's not that simple. And I relayed this conversation that my wife was having with a friend of hers recently, just a few days ago, about, the 3 days of darkness are coming. The 3 days of darkness are coming, and it's gonna be rough, but it's not gonna be that bad. But then after that, it's all gonna be great. It's gonna be amazing. And then the cherry on top was, she said, and Trump is gonna be named president. And my wife was just like, you're one of those people. Okay. So it's like, man, like y'all, like I
almost there.
I had to check. I'm not going to say who it was, because I don't want them to see this at some point and get the wrong, but someone very close to me, sent a picture in a group chat, and it was basically like, it was Trump at the desk. This was like right before the election. Okay. It's Trump at the desk, and he's got his hands writing on something, maybe he was just sitting there and he was doing like this, or he's just sitting there and he's like got this pensive look on his face or whatever. It's like a painting. Mm-hmm. And behind him is like Jesus, like holding him. And like, it was this very, and I just had to I was like, yo, that's not cool. Like, I'm sorry. Like I appreciate, like, if you want to suggest to me that we should pray that happens, okay, I can listen. Like, if only that were true,
right.
Would that Trump would be that, that willing to surrender his will to the will of God.
Yeah.
However,
I'm not seeing that happen.
However, let's be real. Let's be honest. If that man is your savior, as Father Turbo would say, you're not going to make it.
Right.
And that's the thing I want to like impress on people, because that's what I've had to come to grips with, is that I don't know what's actually going to happen at the moment, should it come to that, where I am tempted with rescue, tempted with comfort, tempted with a false salvation of sorts, or whatever it is, when either the pain is so excruciating or the enticement is so alluring or whatever. I can't say, because I haven't been presented it yet. This is like that whole, remember when they used to tell you, like, you got to be ready to say no, just say no. And, start acting these out. Let's do some role playing where you can act out, like trying to figure out how you're going to say no to drugs when the time comes, or sex, premarital sex or whatever. It's like, I mean, you can do all that all you want. You can say all the things and do all the things, but you don't know how you're going to respond at that point. But I'll say this: if you begin a practice of prayer and repentance and trying to build virtue and relying on God, surrendering to God, and letting Him have your have your will in His hands to do with it as He pleases, for your own benefit and for the glory, for His, for the glory of the kingdom of God, then you got a chance.
Right.
Because the reality is we don't know where our line in the sand is. Because we've been so comfortable. We haven't been anywhere close to forced to draw and to stand up for that line. There's this old story about, Cassie Bernal. She's the famous Columbine victim who they told her, they're like, gun to her face, renounce Jesus. And she's like, no. And they just shot her in the face. And that was it. That's what the witnesses described. And that her parents put this quote in the book about her, because I read that book back, 20 years ago or so. It was from Sadhu Sundar Singh, and he said it's easy to die for Christ because it only takes a moment, but to live for Christ is difficult because it means you have to die daily, and it's only through going through that process, going through that daily crucible, and putting yourself through that, and picking up that cross and carrying it, and willfully going through some stuff and enduring some things and being patient and praying for patience. And then when God says, all right, I got you. You want some patience? Be patient with this.
Right.
And then
have fun.
And then when you completely, it's kind of like, put me in, coach. I got this. And the coach is like, all right, go. Well, you better be ready to take the winning shot. Yeah. Don't turn the ball over. Don't miss. We want to welcome this stuff. We want the heroic. We want the party. That's what we want. We want the heroes after party, but we don't want to do the heroic things. And the heroic things in a lot of cases are very obscure and hidden and not glamorous, and they're very difficult, and they're very challenging to everything about us, our willpower, our strength, our ability to withstand both pain and suffering and temptation of enticing things. And so one of those big temptations is to put our faith in some of these human leaders that people want. They want the easy path. That's the push for, and it's not, look, I get it. Like, I get why people liked things about Trump and still do like things about Trump. I get it. I understand. Yeah, I understand all this thing. But I'm here to tell you, if that man is more than entertainment for you, you're really setting yourself up for a huge disappointment and perhaps a disaster of your own ability to stand up for yourself and your own ability to withstand what you may have to endure, because that man's not going to save you from it. And if you are putting too much faith on that hook that cannot bear that weight, it's going to break, and you're going to be left trying to catch the pieces as they shatter to the floor.
Absolutely. And to follow that up also with all of this, understand that Chad and I aren't perfect either. I fuck up all the time. I make mistakes constantly. And
I'm on like a 95 fuck up streak today. So it's,
I feel you.
It's yeah.
So there is no human, none, not one, who is going to get you there. And it's just not that. And I, to go back to other religions, all of the religions teach this. The stuff that Chad and I are talking about, sure, we're giving you a couple windows into the path to God and trying to show you that there's not a lot of difference between his path and mine. We use different symbols. We use different names for things. We see God slightly differently, but we don't fucking know. And that's what's up with all of these religions. These are people's best guesses. And, don't follow me. It's why I don't proselytize. Do not do what I do. And the reason isn't because what I do isn't effective for me. It's very effective for me. Do not follow me. My way is not your way. Your way is to put your eyes fixated on God and let him guide you. You will find your way. You will get there when he comes to you and says, come this way. This is where you need to go. Because if God is guiding you, there is no way you can fail. Now, it's going to be a bumpy road because the way to God is, as Jesus says, I think it was, I don't remember the exact passage, but he says that it's like threading a needle. The pathway to God is very, very narrow, and only one man makes it through. Only one man makes it through, and that's Jesus.
Well, he was also God, so it's like that's not fair.
Right. And but I also
you got a quite significant head start.
Right.
I'm just playing Jesus.
Right. They put him at the end.
Just making jokes. I'm just making jokes. It's just
right.
Jokes.
But another thing too, and this again comes back to I'm going to use the example of Hinduism. They are teaching that we're in what's called the Kali Yuga, which is the final emanation of the world, where everything descends into chaos. Sounds familiar. And to go to Gnosticism, God doesn't like just show up and be like, all right, guys, everybody kumbaya, let's go hang out.
Right.
That shit doesn't happen. What God does is he brings Sophia, because in Gnosticism, Sophia is the earth. He brings the earth back into God. If you're trying to find heaven here, you're going to fail. That's not going to happen, because here is part of God. Now that doesn't mean that you should deny this reality. It doesn't mean that everything that is here does not have value. This is where you prove. This is where you show, you know what? I didn't screw up here, and here. And this is where we get to make the appeal to God. Hey, I think I done did all right.
Right.
And God looks at us and says, all right, I'll let you in. Get in the back of the line. Jesus Christ, would you go help these fuckers out?
I don't think he necessarily uses those words, but yes,
he did ask Jesus to go help these fuckers out.
Oh my! Yeah. I'm just saying, I don't know that he used those words.
No, it wasn't a direct quote. I was paraphrasing.
I'm trying to uphold. Yeah. Oh, you're paraphrasing. Okay, well, that's very kind of you. All right, I'm trying to pull something up here, so bear with me just a second. But yeah, so it's something that I think it's human nature to want an easy way out.
Sure.
And too often, even the best of us falls for that, because my gosh, wouldn't it be great if there was an easy way out?
Right. For sure. I'm on board with easy
there was an easy way out. Why can't there just be an easy way out? But as is it Survivor? No, who is it? There ain't no easy way out. You know what I'm talking about?
I don't know. I know it's a song, but I don't know who it is.
There ain't no shortcut home. Something like that. I can't remember who it is, but it's one of those 80s songs. All right, so here we go. Hopefully, oh shit, I'm about to share my screen and I'm not even ready. This is all I wanted to do. I wanted to just add this overlay on here. Give me just a second.
Sure.
People, bear with me. I'm about to bring you something amazing if I can get it to load up on the screen. So I figured one thing out. It's a lot easier if I send stuff to my PC, because it only takes JPEGs and MP4s when you upload stuff. If you do an MOV file or anything like that, it messes up. And if you do one of those HEIC, I don't know, if you don't have an iPhone, you don't know what I'm talking about.
No.
But anyway, Apple stuff doesn't jive well with StreamYard. So here we go. This is very similar to the Tree of Life. I'm going to use my cheat sheet here.
Almost exactly the same as Eden before the fall.
But,
just saying.
But when you were talking about, but this is kind of after the fall too, because this is the how-to guide. So, but anyway, that when you were talking about how narrow that path is, I wanted to bring this up. So this is from St. John of the Cross. This is the graph of the Mount of Perfection. And at the bottom, it says, in order to enjoy, know, possess, and be everything, desire to enjoy, know, possess, and be nothing. You must continue on the way without enjoying, without knowing, without possessing. You must follow the path to which you are nothing. And when you go up the middle is nothing. So on the left is science, liberty, taste, repose, and honor. And on the right is knowledge, consolation, joy, security, and glory. And what you'll find too, as you deepen your prayer life, is when you start off, you get these nice little consolations, and God's like, good job, you're praying, I'm so proud of you, pats you on the head, gives you a cookie, it feels good. And then you keep going down that path, and that goes away. And then you're like, I'm not praying right. I'm doing something wrong. I'm struggling. I can't even pay attention. I'm losing losing my train of thought. I'm getting distracted too easily. I'm also I'm feeling like just like blah, nothing after this. And that is what in this book, what it's described in my faith is called aridity. It's dryness. It's it's like eating food that doesn't have any flavor. Like, it's still nourishing you. It just doesn't taste like anything. It's like rice cakes or something. Like, it's still, there's some nutrition there, but you're not going to enjoy it very much. And what that is it's like, it is God kind of, it's not that he's testing you to say like, haha, I told you weren't ready. It's more of like, listen, I need to remove the consolation from you, because if you get too attached to that consolation, any drop off in that consolation is going to be a pitfall for you. You are going to be, wait, I'm not done yet. You're going to be victim to temptation. Yeah, sorry. All right. So going back to this, so now you have, so up the middle is just nothing. It's like nothing. I said nothing.
More nothing.
It says neither the goods of earth nor the goods of heaven. And so you go up straight through that nothing, and it says, and around that outer concentric circle is, and here there is no way, as for the just man, there is no law. He is a law unto himself. And then on that next inner circle is piety, counsel, understanding, wisdom, knowledge, and fear. So it shows you like what happens on the outside. And it's that thing that we were talking about where it's like, I'm a law unto myself. And that's where so you have that, and then you have this like over liberality, and it's just like, it's this really, really difficult pendulum swinging competition. And then
serpent,
the virtues get more, get closer. We have justice, prudence, faith, charity, hope, fortitude, and temperance. And again, this is back to something along the lines of the opposing virtues to the 7 deadly sins. Then you get this divine silence, the perpetual banquet, divine wisdom. And then I brought you into the land of Carmel to eat the fruit thereof and the best things thereof. That's from Jeremiah 2. And anyway, in the center is only the honor and glory of God remains. And so, saying all that to say that a lot of this is to kind of describe what it means to really live for God and God alone. Because a lot of us, myself included, like to say that and like to believe that that's what we're doing and that's what we're about. And then as soon as something can make us feel good, as soon as somebody gives us a compliment, this there's some really, really sneaky, subtle temptations, getting,
all the time.
Getting somebody saying something nice about you. Even like with me reading these things, I have to like check myself when somebody's like, oh, this is really good. Thank you for doing this or something like that. And I'm like, no, it's not me. It's not me. It's not me.
Sure.
Because otherwise, lest I be tempted to feel pride in myself as though somehow I did this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very fortunate that I have not like collapsed and fallen apart as a result of some of the shit that I've been through going through this and giving it up. And the funny thing is too, here's what's wild. So this is like a perfect way to embody this sentiment in one little scenario. It's day 299. I've done 299 days. The next day is 300, a nice round, even number. And it's good. And I even say like that morning of 299, I'm like, almost 10 months, y'all. And like, I'm starting to, like, I even sensed at that moment, but I just kind of like cast it aside, like a little bit of pride welling up in me,
Sure.
and I'm getting, and 300's the next day. Yo. So I get up Saturday morning. Yeah, it's Saturday morning, this past Saturday, day 300. And I'm supposed to do this show for college football stuff with John Ryan on the Men of Order channel. Or no, it was on his channel. All right. So it's supposed to be at like, I think it's supposed to be at 8 a.m. And so like I was exhausted. I slept later than I should have. So I get up and I'm like, all right, well, I don't have time to do it before the show. And then, but I'm going to do it as soon as we're done. Well, he pushes it back to 8:30. And at that point, it was like 8:15 already. So I'm like, well, I don't have time now, because it kept getting bumped back little by little. Next thing you know, like we finally do the show like almost an hour after we're supposed to. We do the show. The show goes like an hour and a half long. Now it's getting to the point where I got to take my son to his basketball game and everything. Go do that. Then my wife and I are talking. Her brother offers us tickets to go to the LSU football game. I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds like fun. We'll go, just the two of us. It'll be fun. Old times, because I don't ever go to games anymore, hardly. So we're getting ready to go to the game, and I'm like, because what do I say on that thing every day? Good morning, everyone. Like,
right.
It's 5
Good
o'clock.
afternoon, everyone.
It's 5 o'clock in the evening. I haven't done it yet. I'm like, bro, wouldn't that not be the most epic fail? I'm all excited about like making it 300 days. I'm almost to the finish line. I have 2 months to go to do this and not miss a day. That's my pride. My pride is saying like, do this every day and, and then stick a flag in the ground. Like I did this, look at this. I climbed Mount Everest or some BS. And I almost missed it. And like, that was like a great way for me to check myself, for me to say, don't get ahead of yourself, big guy.
Yeah.
This is not about you. It's not about your little streak or any of that stuff. This is about, why didn't you make it to where you had enough time in the morning to make God the first thing in the morning? Because I had this other stuff. I was too tired. I stayed up too late the night before. I was too tired. Then I was, I had this other thing. It's like, some sports betting stuff or whatever. And it's like, wow. All right. So I did that instead of talk to God. All right. That's smart, Chad. Good job. I'm sure that'll work out great. So anyway,
it's all right. God will forgive you.
Well, yes, obviously and absolutely. However, this was more about me recognizing that it ain't about me.
Mm-hmm.
So like from that standpoint, I kind of needed that. I needed to be like tripped and fall on my face. And then God was there. God scooped me up. God reminded me at 5 o'clock, hey, by the way, Chad, you haven't done it yet.
Right.
It's like, don't. All right. We're not going to the game until until after I do this. I gotta, at the very least, I have to read it, So anyway, it was just, it was one of those.
I got two things to say to that. One, the first one comes from a fun place. I've moved on because there ain't shit on TV to rewatching Deep Space Nine because I'm a Star Trek lover. And I'm still in the first season, and the Kai, their spiritual leader, dies and is reborn, and because of some technology, blah blah blah. Anyhow, Kira, one of the main characters, goes to her and tells her, I'm so afraid that I'm going to get before the prophets, which is their version of God, and that they're going to tell me that I'm not worthy. And she said, what? First of all, you're missing the point. They're already ready. They've already forgiven you. They already know that where your heart is. They already know all that stuff. They're just waiting for you. And this is, of course, a paraphrase, but she said, they're just waiting for you to forgive yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is a big deal of what happens with us, is that we come down on ourselves very, very hard, particularly about spiritual things. And I think God has already forgiven a lot of stuff. Now, don't get me wrong. God wanted you to do what you needed to do for that day, but he's already forgiven that because he knows where your heart is. He knows there ain't anything God doesn't know. So he already knows that. So that's number one. The second thing I want to say is that sometimes God uses himself to tempt you, and you need to be prepared for that. My biggest struggle, several years ago, I had a massive experience. I'm very close to an archangel called Azrael, who's the archangel of death. Death's a big deal for me, for those that don't know. And had this massive experience. And, in magical circles, people are constantly trying to get a physical manifestation. They're trying to get an angel to appear before them physically. Well, I got that. Long story short, I got that. And it was the most amazing experience of my entire life. It was, getting to feel divinity hold me tight. It was amazing. It was beautiful. And ever since, I've been striving after that. I will never get that again. Ever. Until I'm actually with God, because Azrael still is not God. He is just another, emanation of God. He's not the actual God. And so God uses himself. He gave me that blessing, which I will still hold as one of the most wonderful things that could happen to a human being. It was amazing. But I'm never going to experience that again in my lifetime, even though I want to so bad all the time. So sometimes God uses himself to be the stumbling block. Remember that, so many months ago, we talked about, and I think it was with Mark Kreslin's, about the Michael Card song, Scandalon, which means stumbling block. That is what Jesus wanted to be. He wanted to be that stumbling block. He makes you stumble. He makes you question yourself, and he makes you want to be better. And so I want to point out that sometimes God himself, how many times has Jesus's name been used to do evil and awful things? How many times have people used the Bible to justify genocide? These are the things that God gets used for. Again, God is unknowable. God is beyond any action that we make. The real salvation, the real truth at the end of that path, when you get to that Kether, is unknowable, ununderstandable, and no wisdom will bring you there. You have to give away all things that you think God is, because God is beyond that.
Yeah, it's when you think of God as a person, it's a whole different, all right, so I know Marcus. Now, I haven't spent a whole lot of time in person with Marcus, so even with that, like I know Marcus, digitally, like through pause. I don't mean like that. But anyway, no, but it's shout out to Bitcoin Mystery School. I'm not looking at Marcus. I'm looking at math. Y'all aren't looking at me and Marcus. You're looking at math. You're looking at a series of ones and zeros that are being, interpreted both ways. They're encoded and then decoded. So that's what a codec is all about. It codes and then decodes the signal. But anyway, we are at a certain level of knowledge, but I certainly don't know Marcus like I know my wife, like I know my kids, like I know my parents. But I don't think I know anyone like I know my wife. You know what I'm saying? So it's a imagine that on like an order of magnitude. I wouldn't even say an order of magnitude. It is beyond exponential. It's in an infinitely deeper level of knowledge in a way that is like experiential of a person. So this is, you can read all you want to read. You can watch all the videos you want to watch. You can do, you can study all you want to study. It's not even a drop in the ocean compared to what actually is. We are talking about the Alpha and the Omega, the infinite, the omnipresent, the omniscient, the omnipotent. And when we think of those things, how can you possibly purport to know beyond looking through a mirror dimly?
Yeah.
That's why that's in that letter to the Ephesians is like, then we will see face to face. Now we see through a mirror dimly, or through a glass dimly. It's a completely different, it's unfathomable, like you said, what we are destined, what we are meant to be united to for all eternity. But the other part of it is that I want to break, because you touched on this, and I wanted to say it, but you had a few different thoughts. You had a few, you were in your zone. You had a few more thoughts after that, but I wanted to touch on this. You spoke about now I lost my train of thought. So I was talking about infinity. That's terrible. How did I do that?
Well, maybe you'll recapture it.
I hope I do. Golly, it's crazy. Oh, I know what it was. All right, I got it. My bad. So you were talking about forgiveness and like forgiving ourselves. So that's the key. Like, so much of people's energy and time is wasted, I think, on this idea of salvation and who's going to be saved, who's saved, and all this stuff. And so on the one hand, none of us can know. Right. I don't care what you have said, what you have committed to, or whatever other things that, like, because a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I was saved on such a, like, oh really? All right. So like when you die and they're ripping your legs off limb from limb, you know for a fact that you're not going to renounce God and give yourself over to Satan to save you from that. Right. And that there's that, and I don't even like, it's one of those things where, like, you were talking about forgiving ourselves. That's what spurred that thought for me, is that the biggest challenge that we have is not whether or not we do enough stuff to please God, or whether or not we are forgiven by God, because we are. It's whether or not we will choose to avert our eyes from the light of God. That, as Father Turbo described, the flames of hell are the love of God. Because to the sinner who has not forgiven himself, the flames of hell are torture, because we cannot accept the love of God. We cannot accept the forgiveness of God. And so that love of God becomes like a touch of excruciating pain. Yeah. When we allow ourselves to forgive ourselves, and allow ourselves to accept and receive the forgiveness and mercy of God, then because the way he described it was, it's like when you turn on a light. I've said this like 3 times, I think, on this show, but not on this episode, so I get to do it again. But you turn on a light when your kids are sleeping because they call your name out, and you come into the room to check and see if they're okay. You turn the light on. That light allows them to see. Well, no, that light. Yeah,
Sure.
I mean, it might. Their eyes are going to adjust, obviously. All right, but
Sure.
we're not talking about that part, Marcus. What we're talking about instead
That
is
was the flames of hell.
no. That's not the flames of hell. I'll tell you what the flames of hell are.
Sure,
Maybe you
sure.
forgot. It's a good thing I'm restating this because now
I
it gets to go
do.
through.
I'm just fucking with you,
So
dude.
when you flip the switch on, the kid sees their dad, like, oh, all right, daddy's here. I'm safe. Oh, there's no monsters in this room. I see all the lights are on and there's no monsters in here. Okay. I feel safe. Hold me, daddy. I'm, comfort me, all that good stuff. They know it's you. They can see you, all that. That's that light. Now, you flip that same light on and, Uncle Fred, the pedophile, is in there, trying to, get your kid naked or whatever. That same light makes Uncle Fred want to jump out the window.
Right.
And start fighting. So that's the difference between innocence and sinfulness, and wanting the embrace of God versus wanting to run from God because of what we are ashamed of, that we know that the light has just revealed. And so in that sense, so much of this comes down to how much are we willing to endure here, and look, this is tough for me right now because I got to be perfectly honest. Like, I'm saying this stuff while I'm in the midst of struggling with it. Okay, like, I am not saying this like, hey, y'all suck because y'all haven't figured this out yet, and y'all haven't picked up your cross and everything. Like, no, bro, I drop my cross, I throw that bitch down on the ground all day, every day.
Same.
I don't want to carry it. I fight with myself, and I pray to God for the strength and the mercy and the perseverance to continue to pick it up again and to continue to deal with the shit that I have to deal with. Because I know that right now, when it's easy, if I let myself give in to the little easy temptations, I don't stand a chance against what I might be asked, what might be asked
Right.
of me. And so that's what I'm saying, is that, like, that's where we need to be orienting ourselves, and to remember at all times that the best thing that you can do on this whole salvation, I'm saved, or are you saved? You're not saved because you didn't do this, or you are saved. You aren't saved because you think you have to do things, or whatever weird kind of, like, trying to keep score of who's saved right now, as if we have any damn clue on September 27th, 2022, who is saved and who isn't, while we're all still alive. Anyway, the thing that you can put some infinite faith in is that as long as you lean into God's mercy and forgiveness and accept and receive that, that's your shot right there.
For sure.
Because all the other stuff is to the extent that, like, the statement is true that faith without works is dead. We have to do the work. We have to build virtue. We have to be virtuous. Otherwise, our faith is just a banging gong, a clanging cymbal. It is just like some BS words that we're saying to make ourselves feel better. We have to endure some stuff, and we have to do some stuff to put our money where our mouth is. But we have to also recognize that it's not a checklist. Like, that's where I think this whole faith versus works thing gets twisted, is that some people think it's a checklist. Like, I did this, therefore I'm going to heaven. And then there's other people who are like, No, moron, that's not how it works. None of that stuff matters. All you have to do is say, I accept Jesus, and that's it. I win. Like, okay, perhaps y'all are both wrong and right at the same time, because you have to do a bunch of shit, but also checking it off on a list is not like you can check something on a list and then you can turn right back around and erase that bitch because you drop your cross on the ground again, you throw it down, and then by the same token, you can say, like, I accept Jesus as my Lord and Savior, and I'm saved. All right. So guys,
now where are the titties?
Exactly. Or whatever. And it's not even necessarily just that. It's sometimes it's like, it's, you see it in a lot of different things. It's being prideful. Sometimes it's not just like, everybody always thinks that, like, oh yeah, if you drink or if you have lust in your heart or if you have this, those are the things that are bad. Like, no, bro, like I get that those things aren't great, but like, man, show me somebody who really thinks they got it all together.
Yeah.
And I'll show you somebody who is right on the precipice of
failure,
a very, very hard fall. Because I've been there. And so what did he say? Random, what did he say? I didn't see. Oh, dude, you suck. Oh my God, I hate y'all. Anyway, when I see you looking at the chat, it gets me. I start looking at it. Dude. But anyway, so I'm saying all that to say that, like, there are a lot of us who believe that, because I'm Catholic, we know this, we've established this, born and raised. This whole faith and works thing is not an either or, it's a both and. And the works is, I think there have been a lot of Catholics who have missed the mark on this because they have gotten into checking boxes on a list every day. And there are a lot of Protestants who believe that all Catholics are like that. And that's not the case. There are some of us who actually believe that, like, doing the things that that Christ calls us to do and surrendering our will to the will of God is part of how you live your faith.
For sure.
And you're going to fail, but it's by doing those things that, not that those achievements are some like shield against judgment or damnation or anything like that. It's more like, those are the exercises that you do so that at that moment when everything possible is asked of you, you're as strong as possible to be able to resist the temptation at that moment of death, where where the demons come for your souls.
Yeah. And there's a lot of what you just said. First of all, Chad, I'm proud of you. I know we're not supposed to be prideful. I get that you fail all the time. I understand all that because I've been there. I've done the work too. And part of the work is learning to fail. And so I want to say that first off. The second thing I want to say is one of my favorite things I have ever seen on one of the signs in front of a church. It was I believe it was I don't even remember. It was a Lutheran church that said, God is too big to fit into one religion. And I really enjoyed that. And the reason that I enjoyed that is because religion, regardless of what religion you practice, that's a man thing. That's not a God thing. God did not say, hey, I'm a Catholic, or hey, I practice voodoo, or hey, I'm a Hindu, or God doesn't do that shit. God wants you to be seeking him. He wants you to be a good person, and he wants you to seek after him. And for me, I personally like to grab onto what Voltaire said, and what Voltaire said is, find God in, how he described his religion was he was trying to find God in nature and be a good man. And so I like that because, and that deals with this world. In this world, I'm trying to be a good man. I'm trying to do the things that are right. I'm trying to take care of my family, those kinds of things. But I'm also, it's finding God in nature, and I'm finding God in everything that there is in existence. And books are in existence, so I find God there too. I find God in my own soul. I find God in Chad. I find God everywhere I can find him. because I think that that's important, and that's where our focus should be.
Mm.
The final thing that I wanted to bring about in what you were talking about was, and this relates back to the tree of life. And this isn't generally like magical Kabbalah, which is more modern Kabbalah. It's the ancient kind of Kabbalah that the Hebrews practiced. You had to be like a 40-year-old male Jewish person to be doing that. I ain't none of those. So I'm over 40. I got that one done, and I'm a man. But there were three things that kind of went around Kether, or the crown, that were supposed to be the real knowledge of what God was, because Kether is just the like shadow of what we can even fathom of what God is. And the clues are the three things above that. And those three things are three sentences, the first one's actually a word. It's Ein, A-I-N, Ein Sof, and Ein Sof R. And what those three things are, I think is fun, coming back to the glyph that you put up with Saint John, is the word Ein means nothing. That's what that word means. And I also find it fun to say nothing is greater than God, but because the next emanation past the crown is nothing. And
Funny, you like to tempt fate, don't you?
I do. And my whole life is that. But the second,
evidently,
the second emanation is Ein Sof, which is limitless nothing. And the final one is nothing but limitless light. That's what Ein Sof R means. And the light of God is.
It sounds like insofar, like it's
insofar
as
insofar as I am God. But yeah, I know. But I know. But the light of God is beyond the light that we think. The light is so blinding that no one can see it. And so, again, what we're talking about is trying to become that divine fool that we talked about, trying to get past our ego, trying to get past da'ath, which is the abyss, get past knowledge, get past what we think we're supposed to do, and just try our damnedest to find God. And that's what all cosmologies are about. That's what the body of God is. It is man on this journey to find out and live well. We should all live well. We should not, deny the life that we are given. God has given me a lot of pleasures in my life. I have a wonderful wife. I have great kids. I have wonderful friends. I get to come on a podcast with this crazy Catholic dude, and sometimes this crazy black dude named Nicco. But
shout out to Nicco. Nicco's in class. Nicco's trying to become an engineer or something. I don't know. He's Nicco's leveling up. So yeah. So he'll be back.
Sure.
Just hang on. He'll be back. We got to work on our schedule because we're all kind of in like a transition phase right now, I think, with work and other responsibilities. So we're trying to get it straight and trying to set something so we don't have to keep moving it around. But it's going to be moving for a little bit here. Anyway, continue. So you get to come on with this crazy Catholic and this crazy Haitian Chicagoan.
Yeah. And I get to put up with all kinds of craziness in my life. God has blessed me massively. So I'm going to live the life that God gave me. I'm going to do the best that I can with what he provided. And I'm going to do that while also trying to put my eyes on him and try to keep him in that as well. Understand that when Amber is holding me and telling me that it's going to be okay because I'm freaked out about, where the next paycheck's going to come from or whatever it is, I need to realize that is God holding me and saying it's going to be okay, because he uses each of us as a tool. And, I pray every day that many people know that my daily prayer is make me a tool of your glory. That's what I pray for every day.
Well, you're certainly a tool. So step one is
Can I be a dildo? I want to be a dildo.
See why I can't be on podcast with this guy? Like one sentence it's one thing, and then the next sentence it's something else. And then he drags me into doing that stuff. I end up doing it too. My 13-year-old nature comes out
for
sometimes.
Sure. Did I mention my chosen face of God is a crazy dude with rum and cigars?
Yeah, you did. Yeah. Oh man, but no, I mean this is it's a wild time to be alive, because I think if you look throughout history, there have been some times of like some really, really rough stuff that people had to deal with, plagues and, massive wars and all this other stuff that has been, just really, really rough stuff that people have had to endure. And we've had it kind of easy for a long time. And so a lot of this, like, really not that bad stuff seems like, somebody's, going crazy on us or whatever. And what do you say?
He's going live with
Ken. Oh, all right. Shout out. Yeah, I'm going to hop in over there in that chat. So good shit. But yeah, so one of the things that's interesting about it is that we have this unique, never before available ability to connect with people over vast distances and share some of these ideas, concepts, and share like our love and our understanding and share our thoughts with each other and kind of bounce some of these things off of each other. And it's been really tremendous to go through this process of like spiritual growth and growth as a person and everything with you and Nicco, because like when we started this off, it's funny. I was telling somebody the other day, I don't remember what it was. It was something about like being on a podcast. Who was I talking to? I was talking to somebody on the phone, and it was like, yeah, like I've been on a podcast for like almost 3 years now, and the first time, I started off on that show as a guest, and so like, for it to start that way, and then for it to go into this other thing where it started off as just two anarchists, two libertarians getting on a show to like be libertarian anarchist type people and just talk shit about the government and talk shit about Bill Gates and and whoever else. And it very quickly turned into what tonight's episode is about. And it's funny because the first time we ever had that kind of conversation, no one will ever see that conversation. Marcus and I talked for like 3 hours, unrecorded, over Zoom, after we finished recording an episode about like Bitcoin or something. And it's funny because Nicco watched that show. I didn't know Nicco was watching. I knew Nicco from the Hotep Nation chat or whatever from the Patreon. And Nicco's like, yo, man, good shit. That show was good. I was like, oh, yeah, dope. You liked it? He's like, yeah, man, it's good. And he just started like, that was at a point where it was pretty early in the lockdown era and all that stuff. And so I think a lot of us had a lot more time on our hands than we do now. Sure. And so there were a lot of us who were just like, yeah, man, I'm just going to start calling around and, having just like these long conversations with people over the phone. So we could, because we text in this group chat, but we never like would talk. And so Nicco he's like, yo, man, can I hit you up? I was like, yeah. Let's do it. So he calls me up. Oh, I know what it was. I was inviting people. I invited the whole Hotep Nation Discord, or it was on Telegram at the time, invited them all to my house for the 4th of July for a party. And I think that was right when we were switching from Telegram to Discord. So like I started it there, and then I have like a little group of the people who, and so Trisha came and she brought a friend of hers, and Nicco was supposed to come, but Nicco, it was like, he's not 25, and like the car rental was going to be a disaster. So it was going to be like $1,000 something like that to rent a car for like 2 days or something. I was like, no, don't do that. Just I'll see you some other time. So anyway, it's funny. Nicco calls me up and we have this conversation, and like we just stumble into, because we're talking about the Aquarian Anarchy episode that Marcus and I had just done that he had watched. And he starts saying something about how, about like what, his faith and like what he was into and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh shit, man, you should talk to Marcus because he and I just had like a really long conversation about this. And he's like, oh, all right, bet. So like he comes on the next week or 2 weeks later, and we get off and we all go about our separate ways. I'm still, I'm part of the show at that point, but Nicco's not. And then Marcus hits me up like a few days later, and he's like, hey, what do you think about bringing on Nicco permanently? And I was like, really? Like one episode? All right. Like, so this is what Marcus does. Be careful. He had me on for one episode. Next thing I know, I'm permanent. Nicco comes on for one episode. Nicco's permanent. I think it might have been two. I think you like Nicco better than you like me, because I think I came on a second time as a guest, and that's when we had that conversation, and then I was permanent after that. But anyway, the point being, it's kind of wild how I don't know that these types of interactions are even possible, can even take place, 30 years ago, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Let alone 500 years ago or 3,000 years ago or anything like that. So I think what we need to do is try as best we can to, as Marcus was saying, orient ourselves toward God and surrender. It's funny, like we talk about all this stuff, and Unk has tweeted this out. I don't think he means it the way that I'm about to say it, but he says Islam is the answer or something like that, or Islam is the way. And I think Jesus has said the same thing. They're talking more about like the very, Sharia law, stringent, right-hand path stuff that I would warn against a lot of that stuff. I say Islam is the way, but I mean it completely differently. I mean the real meaning of the word, which is surrender. Islam means surrender. And
yeah,
when we surrender our will to God, that's where the more you can do that, and that's why, like, back to this faith versus works thing and it being a both and, the more you can fully trust God, the more you really have faith in God, the more your works manifest themselves as you surrendering your will to the will of God. Because the more you try to control things and the more you try to make God's will your will, the more you try to make God's will look like your will instead of making your will look like God's will, the more you get yourself into trouble, and then you're not prepared. That, I guess that's the point I was getting at, is that when we conform our will to God's, and the more we do that, the more perfectly we do that, the closer we get to a place where it's not that God's going to be like, hey, good job, you were 97% there, so you get in. That guy, though, he was 63% there. He doesn't get in because this is, 65 is an F. He fails. Like, no, it's not to say that. It's just to say that when the time comes and you are asked to make the ultimate surrender, do you surrender to God, or do you surrender to whatever that temptation is that is perfectly designed to present itself as the Antichrist, as the rescue, as the savior that is not the savior? It is false. And so when you can't recognize real from counterfeit, you're putting yourself in danger. And so that's kind of where that discussion about faith and works comes down for me, is that the works are the process of surrendering your will to the will of God. And
yes,
the works are the manifestation by surrendering your will to God, that you trust him enough to surrender your will to him. Because when you don't trust him enough, that's when you try to take stuff and do it on your own. And that's how we fuck it all up. I'm a living testament to that. I think we all are, but I can only speak for myself. I don't try to speak for other people, but you know what I'm saying? So like, it's finding that way to say, God, I trust you enough that I'm going to let you take this. And I'm actually going to let Jesus take the wheel instead of Jesus take the wheel, not over there, you know.
Right.
I didn't know you were going to take me over there. I want to go back to the titty bar, you know, like it's, and I'm only saying that because you said that thing earlier.
Titties.
I think generally speaking, especially in this world that we live in now, I don't know, titty bars might be the least of our worries.
For sure.
I think we have some. I see it right now. We've talked about this. I see it with some people calling, and they were talking about DeSantis, you know, red flag laws and all that other stuff. There are people who are, and you saw this Italian woman get elected prime minister or president or whatever the hell their leader is over there in Italy, and everybody's like, oh, this is great, you know, and all this stuff. And then you look at some of that stuff and it's like, man, y'all be careful, because a lot of times tyranny presents itself on one side of that path of that tree of life. And on the other side, what looks like comfort and protection is actually tyranny with a different costume on.
Correct.
And they're both from the devil. And so that's why I warn against this thing of like trying to find these. To me, that's worse. That's a greater danger than the titty bar. Because I think even if you really search the heart and soul of people who go with, you know, prostitutes, go to titty bars or whatever, I think if you search their souls, they're like, yeah, man, I know I shouldn't be doing this shit, but you know, I like titties.
I need some titties.
You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Whereas I think there are people, back to that thing about that painting of Trump with Jesus behind him. There are people who actually really believe that like DeSantis is Jesus' second coming, or at the very least that he's ordained by God. I heard people say that Trump was sent to us, ordained by God to save us from something. That is a greater danger. Because that is literally falling for small antichrist. It's not the ultimate antichrist, but it is falling for the counterfeit. It is falling for and that's an indication that when you look at, okay, I have God or I have politicians, I'm going to put a God costume on these politicians, and you think that's not a path to destruction?
Right.
How do you think Hitler and Mussolini and Mao and all these, like, this is how this shit happens? These people are a response. They are a response to trouble, to terror, to tyranny. And the response often ends up being this Jesse Kelly tweet. I don't have it at my fingertips or whatever, but he said, I want a monster. To fight back against the trans agenda or whatever other agenda that they might see. And I'm telling you, like, it's there, as Cyprian so perfectly states it, their degeneracy is your trap.
For sure.
It's just, you just do you. Pick up your cross and carry it and endure it and deal with the shit and surrender to God's will, because you worrying about this other stuff, you know, protect your family. Yes, absolutely. But to the extent that people are pouring tons of energy into libs of TikTok responses or something like that, you're kind of missing the point. Like that's not where your energy needs to be. Where your energy needs to be is making sure that your family is prepared, that if the shit really hits the fan, that they're not going to say, you know what do I need to do to not have to deal with this tribulation? Because somebody said that this, when the vid stuff happened and everything, and people were saying like, this is the apocalypse. This is the.
Hey, I was guilty of that.
there were people who were saying that. Well, somebody said, no, this can't be the apocalypse because we haven't been raptured yet. And it's like, man, y'all missed the whole plot. Like,
right. Abs.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, it's back to that thing that I said at the very beginning. This is not, people have a mistaken impression that somehow we win and we get to skip the hard part, that we're going to do like the Super Mario Brothers. We're going to go up to the top of level 2, whatever level that was. We're going to jump in a pipe and we're going to come out and we're going to be on level 8-7 or 8-4 or whatever the hell the last level with Bowser is. Right. And all we have to do is go and then jump over him and we win. We save the princess. No, there's we got to go through it. Yeah. We're going to have to endure some shit. And I mean, there are going to be some of us who are going to die and you know, aren't going to have to go through the real shit. And who knows? I mean, it may be like more millennia before it actually happens because they've been talking about the end is near for 2,000 years. Yeah. So, but I'll say, like, if we think that somehow we get to like just like say some magic words and it's just like, all right, we won. Like revelation was just like a unless you say these words, this book doesn't exist. You know, like if you say these words, the magic words make the book of Revelation not happen. Like, no, bro, like you either you believe the shit or you don't. And so being prepared to endure that and not give in. God help me. I hope I'm prepared, and I'm just gonna keep pushing, keep working to get there, and praying for it. Yeah, would say Guantanamo, red flag Guantanamo DeSantis. Yeah, there you go. Sketch. Shout out to Sketch.
So I want to drive home what you're saying, Chad. This is the tree of life. The focal point of this entire drawing is the top. The purpose of it, even the snake, even the serpent, is to guide you to Kether, is to get you to God. That's the purpose, right? This, to skip, is the tree of evil. Notice there are 2 serpents, and they are the focal point, with the black dot in the middle. What Chad was just talking about was that if you make God your focus, if that's where you're going, then you have a good chance of being on the tree of life. If you are balancing between the right and left, if you're, running over to DeSantis or run over to Bernie Sanders or doing all that crap, if that's what you're doing, you're on the tree of evil, because the tree of evil has 2 serpents. And we're looking for a dove. So again, whatever path you find works for you to get to God. Because I'm not here to judge. The Bible tells me very clearly that I'm not to judge what you do. Those are your choices. That's what God knows your heart. Do what you got to do. 1, to take care of your family, live in this world as best as you can, be the best person that you can, do the best for them that you can, show them the way, so that when they are judged by God and it's their time, they will know where they need to be.
Yeah. So I want to, all right, so hang on just a second. Let me get back over to us. I hope I'm going to be able to do this. I might have to. I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to do this. But I want to bring this up. So this is what Sketch said here. He says, I like the Italian lady more than DeSantis, though. At least her speech rings truer than anything I heard DeSantis say. He is very issue specific. Okay, I don't disagree with the characterization of DeSantis as issue specific, but I do want to, let me see if I can find it. because I want everybody to see this. This woman, her speech, and I look, full disclosure, like I hadn't seen anything of this woman. I didn't know what we were dealing with or anything like that. I hadn't really even seen any of this stuff. So like my source was actually some of the folks on the Royal Path. Not Royal Path. It kind of becomes the Royal Path Telegram channel sometimes with the Bitcoin Mystery School folks. But it's on the Bitcoin Mystery School chat. All right, so give me a second while that's what I don't know what I'm doing. I'm stupid. All right, stop. Please don't start playing. Because I want you to see like Scheiße. That's German for poop. All right, give me just a second. I gotta go find it again. Bear with me, folks. I'm sorry. Marcus, go ahead and talk away, my friend, while I'm
all right.
While I'm trying to find this because it might take me a second.
So I don't know a lot about this woman in Italy. Again, I do think that to kind of go to some of the stuff we talked about, a lot of the pendulum swinging is going to happen because we see it coming. You know, the Democrats in this country are going to get a shellacking in this election. They are going. It
seems that way. They're trying everything they can to. Yeah, they're trying everything they can to. Whatchamacallit, booster the economy with BS to make it not the case, but they're in for
Nancy Pelosi got booed at an environmental get together this week.
Yeah, well, it was some immigrant stuff too, wasn't it? Like that was some of the folks.
I thought it was environmental,
maybe it was. I don't know.
But yeah, she got booed by her own people a lot, and so you know the bottom line is this isn't the first time this stuff's happened. You know, you can look back to Jimmy Carter, and the next thing you get is Reagan. And, you know, and that's just my lifetime. And that's the first time I remember. I was born in 75. So it's just another pendulum swing.
So here we go. Give me just a second. I'm about to. So we're going to pull this thing up because I want y'all to see. I want y'all to pay attention to how she actually appears, and like just so you can't really hear what she's saying to like fully understand it because it's I don't know if the audio is there or not, but anyway, I'm going to try best I can to share this screen real quick.
We weren't prepared for this before.
No, we were not, but since you brought it up, like because it's important, I want this to be there it is. All right, there she is. So get ready. Here she comes. I'm going to attempt to stop being so fast, Twitter thing. All right, so here's the video. Oh yeah, so this is it. So we will defend our identity, God, homeland, and family. But watch her eyes, and watch the way that she like. I get it, like we can get passionate and everything, but this is potentially very dangerous because I remind you that like a lot of the stuff in some of these other response movements, so to speak, a lot of it has been very charismatic people who are angry, have identified problems appropriately, and then they're very charismatic. And so their charisma actually makes them very appealing to people. And you don't necessarily know what's coming. And a trademark is great speaks. Obama gave great speeches.
So did Hitler.
You know, exactly. So watch as she delivers this and watch her eyes.
Difenderemo la nostra identità, difenderemo Dio, patria e famiglia e fatevene una ragione.
Wow.
Difenderemo la nostra identità.
Yeah, those eyes are not pleasant.
Patria e famiglia
You know, so I'm just and like if you go through and you listen to all the stuff, and then she says, because I responded and the thing somebody said something about one of the quotes on it, like somebody was quoting the speech, and they said, "Oh, it's so beautiful," blah blah blah. Where is it? Oh, shoot, I said something like, he said. Somebody said it was beautiful. He said, it's Jonathan Pajot. Like he's lost the plot. He said, Lord have mercy. I said, well, it bordered on beautiful right up until the very end where it became a call to arms, because that's the thing she said. She starts talking in this very like, we're going to war kind of language. And I'm like, that's where I'm just like, yo, y'all, like it's not this is not the droid you're looking for.
Right.
And again, I go back to like, we're talking about, no, that was what? That's not the speech you mean. I think it was the same speech, but because if you go, it's it's just a different angle of the same speech. So I can show the one that you're actually talking about. Give me just a second. But yeah, go ahead, Marcus, because I'm gonna pull it up.
The point sketch is that isn't that her eyes are looking wicked or whatever.
Right.
That's not the point. The point is it comes back, and this is going to be a paraphrase, so I'm not going to look up the quote. But Ludwig von Mises said, "We don't conquer totalitarianism by embracing totalitarian methods. We have to embrace love." At the end of the day, I know that is hard. That's the entire point of this entire. If you've watched, and you've watched the majority of what we've been talking about. The point is to embrace something different. It's to embrace love. It is to embrace God. It is to embrace goodness. And we're not going to get a savior from the right. We're not going to get a savior from the left. We're not going to get a savior. If you were looking for a savior, he showed up several years ago. You missed
and they murdered him.
Yeah, and they killed him.
We killed him. We're like, hey, thanks for coming, real savior. You suck. We don't want to listen to this BS where we have to like do stuff. We just want to kill you and like go back to being Pharisees. All right, so this is the one. I'm pretty sure this is the one you're talking about. It's the same speech. It was just a different angle, I think, that they were showing from that other one. So this is about what we are doing here today. Why is the family an enemy? Why is the family so frightening? There's a single answer to all these questions. Because it defines us. Because it is our identity. Because everything that defines us is now an enemy. For those who would like us to no longer have an identity and simply to be perfect consumer slaves, they also attack national identity, religious identity, they attack gender identity, family identity. I define myself as an Italian, Christian, woman, mother. No, I can't define myself that way. I have to be. And so this is the stuff where it's like, okay, so she's touching on the things that are the problem, right?
Quando non avrò più radici, beh, allora sarò lo schiavo perfetto in balia della grande speculazione finanziaria.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff I agree with.
The perfect consumer. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was kind of beautiful right up until the part where. So this is the reason why.
Questa è la ragione per la quale oggi noi facciamo tanta paura. Questa è la
We
ragione per la
inspire
quale
so
oggi
much fear.
questo appuntamento fa tanta
Why
paura.
this event inspires
Perché
so
noi non
much
vogliamo
fear.
essere dei numeri, noi siamo qui per dire che noi non siamo dei numeri, noi difenderemo il valore della persona umana, di ogni singola persona umana, perché ognuno di noi ha un codice genetico unico e irripetibile. E questo piace
We
o
all
no,
have
è del sacro.
unrepeatable
Lo
genetic
difenderemo,
code. We're all
difenderemo
unique.
Dio, la patria,
Like it or
la
not, it's
famiglia,
sacred. We'll defend
tanto
it. We'll
schifo a
defend God,
qualcuno.
family,
Lo
country.
faremo per difendere la nostra
The
libertà,
things that disgust people
perché
so much.
noi non
The
saremo
freedom.
mai
We'll never
schiavi
be
e
slaves and
semplici
simple consumers
consumatori
at
in
the
balia
mercy
della
of financial
speculazione finanziaria.
speculators.
Ecco la nostra missione, ecco
That is
perché
our
oggi
mission.
sono
That is why I
venuta
came
qui.
here today.
Scriveva Chesterton
Chesterton wrote more
ormai
than a
più di un
century
secolo
ago.
fa.
And so
We
this
have
is
a
where she takes
Chesterton quote.
Vediamo
Chesterton.
se
She brings
lo
out
trovo.
Chesterton, though. Let's see if I can find it.
Fuochi verranno
And she says,
attizzati per
fires will be
dimostrare che
kindled to
2 più 2 fa
testify
4.
that 2 and 2 make 4.
Spade verranno sguainate per
Swords will
dimostrare
be
che le
drawn to
foglie sono
prove that
verdi in
leaves are green
estate.
in summer.
Quel tempo è arrivato, signori. Siamo pronti.
The time
Grazie.
has arrived. We are ready. Thank you. That's the part I'm saying. Like,
Yeah, that I
so
agree. I agreed with.
She's riling people
War.
up to go to war with their enemies, and I'm telling you, like, that ain't the way. That's the whole point of, like Marcus said, that is the whole point of what we've been talking about here tonight, is that when that is so, what she is doing, she's being a perfect trap to people who want her or someone like her to save them. And if they have to take up swords to do it, they will take up swords to do it. And they missed the whole plot. The whole plot is not, we have to go kill these people who want to, like, I wrote about, if you go back and look, I wrote when the leak happened at the Supreme Court with the Roe v. Wade decision. I wrote about this on menoforder.com, that this is going to create this false dichotomy that the choices are either unoverturn Roe v. Wade and restore all the abortion rights, or have like this, we've got to defend the babies by throwing people in jail or killing doctors or whatever. What are we going to electric chair, death penalty the doctors who do the abortions? And it misses the whole gaping problem right dead center, which is, we have millions of women who want to murder their own children. And the response is, I think we should force them to have those children. And we're missing the fact that, like, the problem is so much deeper than that. The problem is so incredibly much deeper than that. And that, like, this is that King Solomon moment of, splitting the baby. Like the real response is the difficult one. And that is that the woman who says, I would rather the baby live if you don't let me have the baby, than this other woman who wants to split the baby in half, because she'd rather the baby be dead than me have it and her not have it. It's basically like, if I can't have it, nobody can have it. That's where we are sort of in this, is that this is very dangerously getting to that that level of, we slaughter our enemies so they don't slaughter us. And then they slaughter us so that we don't slaughter them. And then we slaughter them, and we're in like a gang warfare type situation where nobody can remember who started the fight, but we know that they're the bad guys and we have to kill them so they don't kill us, and it doesn't end well. And so I would warn against that. I would warn that we have to take that very difficult path of our own prayer and repentance, and rely on God, and don't rely on these people, these politicians. There's so many of them that are bought and paid for. And yeah, they're going to have, bro, you don't think they know how to focus group all these speeches to say all the things, say all the right words? It's always all the right words. And then there's that little twist at the end that's always going to be like well, they've already got you. You listen, sales 101, get your customer saying yes. Hey, do you love your wife? Yes. Oh, do you, I'm sell you jewelry or some shit like that, tell you all the things that's going to make it to where when I finally pull that jewelry out and try to get you to buy it, even though you can't afford it, you're going to feel like an asshole if you don't buy it, because you must not love your wife and all those other things. All that stuff that she said was that sales 101 tactic. I'm going to say all the things. And then at the end, you're going to give me a standing ovation when I call for war.
Right.
That's it. I'm done.
Yeah. And just to put the capstone on that, that's Edward Bernays. That is propaganda. And it is create the problem, which she did, offer the solution, and call to action. It's textbook. That's Edward Bernays. So we fight that. And how we fight that is with love, peace, and freedom. And we find that at the top of that tree of life in God. It's been good. I've really enjoyed this, Chad. You're a blessing in my life. You may not want to be
Likewise,
prideful.
bro.
You may not want to be prideful, but I'm awful fucking proud of you because I've watched your journey. I've watched you grow just massively over the past 10 months. And I look forward to being your friend for a very long time and watch you grow even farther. So thank you guys. And please share this if anybody wants to talk about comparative religion and maybe learn a couple things and from a couple crazy anarchists.
It wasn't appropriate at the time because Marcus was getting deep and it was kind of touching and everything. But I just have to say the stuff that you said, it had to be said.
Always
you know,
fun.
we're always going to have fun. So that's the thing. Like, if anything, we'll be a fool for Christ that way. So
yeah,
anyway,
for sure.
With that, Marcus, send them home.
All right. Stay free, my friends.
Peace, y'all.